Well, all right, Brian. Madden NFL 16 has been out in the wild for about a week now, which means that not only have consumers gotten their hands on it and weighed in with their thoughts, but critics have gotten their hands on it as well, both in the video game website space as well as in the mainstream sports space. It's always an interesting time of year when Madden comes out. You see references to it in more places than just Pasta Padre and Operation Sports and Hit the Pass, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For better or for worse. Let's start with the critical analysis. This year, so far, at least, Madden NFL 16, from the Metacritic perspective, has come in pretty high. Right now, with, I believe, 15 reviews overall, it's sitting on Metacritic at an 83. Which is, relatively speaking, a healthy score, in particular for a AAA sports game, which, as we have documented many times, is a challenge for many different sites to review. And frankly, it's a challenge for you and I to review, right?
Absolutely.
You did the review for the Sporting News. I did it for Games Radar. Every year we have to come up with what's the right approach to it. Who do I want to be? Do I want to be me? Do I want to be a casual fan? Do I want to be a newcomer?
Yeah.
But an 83 overall. Are you surprised at the score? Is it what you expected? I'm curious what your thoughts are from the critical standpoint.
Yeah, and if you factor in Xbox One reviews, also it's a little higher. It'd be more like an 84. Xbox One actually comes in at 86, though there's fewer reviews. The score is a little surprising to me in some sense, and not so surprising in another. I think mid-80s is probably a fair range for this game if it weren't for the bugs and if it weren't really for kind of a disappointing franchise mode and disappointing presentation and commentary. The gameplay is fun, and I think that's what's resonating with reviewers here is that most reviewers, let's face it, most reviewers just jump into the game and play. They're not examining in great detail the various modes. They're just jumping in and playing and seeing if they have fun with it and seeing if anything stands out as a negative or seeing if what stands out as positives. And if that's the way you play, I think you enjoy Madden a lot more than in the past. I know I do. I'm going on and playing online draft champions games just against random people quite a bit, and that's something I wouldn't have done in previous years. So I think there's an attraction with Madden 16 to a more casual group that, and most of these reviewers, not all of them, several are very well versed in what Madden is made up of and what needed to be improved upon. Many aren't, though, and many, again, they're not as knowledgeable. So they're going to look at the game in a different way, and I think this game appeals to that crowd a little more. Now, those who have found the bugs or found disappointment in franchise mode, I think might look at that score and be a little frustrated by it because they're frustrated by it. But it's a steady incline for the series, and so if it goes from 74 with Madden 25 to 81 with Madden 15 to 83 or 84, whatever you want to consider it, with Madden 16, that's probably fairly accurate because it is continually getting better. And I think most people outside of the bugs would say that Madden 16 is considerably better than Madden 15. But you're coming off an 80 there, and how many points better is it? And then if you give it that many points higher, how does it compare to other games in the genre, things of that nature? It's a tough thing to kind of evaluate and get a feel for how that's going to all play out as far as scores go and as far as consumer reception to the game goes. But, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that it's higher. Certainly doesn't surprise me that it's higher than last year. So if last year was 81, 83, 84, I would think it would have to be at least that.
It's also interesting if I look at personally the reviews that I did. If I look at MLB 15, the show, and Madden 16, so far the two biggest sports games that have come out this year. I if you look at Games Radar, both of the games got a 4 out of 5, and I can say unequivocally that I enjoy MLB the show more than Madden. And that I think MLB The Show is a better game. If I had known, Brian Weedi, that MLB The Show's online would work as well as it worked, I would have absolutely given MLB The Show a higher score but because it was a release day review and you didn't have the opportunity to do that, I had I had to rely on the history of the franchise of the online, which has been very poor.
No, and that's their own fault. You could not give them any benefit of the doubt for online. And so they had to prove it in the weeks beyond release, and it held up pretty well. So I think next year the scores should better reflect that. We talk all the time, or I mention I think review scores are often a year or two behind, whether that's on the incline or on the decline. It takes a year or two for the more general reviewers to kind of identify how a game is trending. And I think we will see that now with the show, is it's going to start to get more recognition because it has cleared up some of its troubled areas. Madden cleared up some of its some of the troubled areas that were more exposed to people as far as gameplay, as far as entertaining throws down the field, as far as draft champions, giving people something a different way to play. Those things are really obvious. Some of the stuff in the show is really subtle. So it's just, again, what stands out to reviewers.
And it's not really a knock on Madden so much as it is just a indication of how great MLB 15 the show is. I mean, I play it every day. I played it today. Played 2 games today. It's spectacular. And also when it comes to Madden, they have a history of, we've known for years, you never start your online franchise when a game comes out. You got to give it a couple of weeks. You got to give it a patch. But they have also demonstrated in the past a few things. Number one, they do fix the big problems. And number 2, their online has been strong. I mean, generally speaking, any game can have a disconnection, but that strong history also probably lends itself to why, some of the underlying assumptions for those release day reviews are what they are. And we also believe that, in a week or two, a lot of these bugs will be quashed as well. And it's just interesting. I mean, I'm not a huge believer, so to speak, in reviews anymore. Well, I think there's definitely they still have their place in this day and age with live streaming and with the social media being able to get so much more information out, and people are able to see what the games look like and how they play without having to rely on other people telling them it's different. But yet the people who make the games to this day still do absolutely watch the reviews. They look for the review scores. One of their own internal metrics for how good the game is looking at Metacritic. So, the reviews, while I believe that they're less and less important every year, they still do matter, don't they, Brian?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the main ways they collect feedback, or at least react to it. And I don't think they do this as much anymore, but in the past, that was one of the concerns with sports games, was they react to reviewers who are maybe not the crowd they should be reacting to, and then they design a game that's meant to get review scores instead of just meant to please consumers, and you ended up with games that were stale and almost directed at a crowd that really was not even fans of the sport or the game. So it's a really tough situation when you look at how do you evaluate these games, and it's a lot to do with, like you said, with history, and the show coming in on Metacritic at only an 80 versus the 83 or 84 for Madden is kind of surprising. But I think Madden is a game that appeals to more people. That's as simple as it can get. Is it appeals to more people, and that's why it sells 10 times what the show does. And that's going to be reflected in review scores sometimes, the popularity of a game as opposed to maybe the overall quality or depth to within it.
So overall critical reception has been positive. What about that of the consumers on social media and in various avenues? What's your feel tell you for how the consumers at large are feeling about Madden a week after its release?
Yeah, I this year more vocal than I can remember in a long time, and for on different ends of the spectrum. There are people who love the game and really are just entertained completely by it, loving the gameplay, loving the exciting moments in the gameplay, loving draft champions. And then there are people who are completely kind of distraught at the bugs or the lack of attention or what was done poorly, or conceptually at least, in franchise mode. But I'm hearing from more people than I can ever remember about just mentioning random bugs, and not even, like the encroachment bug is huge, because I almost have given up on playing online because the encroachment bug just comes up at the most inopportune times. At fourth quarter drives, you get stuck with that encroachment bug, and it happens to everyone. It's just a matter of when it happens that can really kill you. Just some random stuff too, more so than I'm used to hearing, certainly. So there's a vocal nature to the response to Madden this year, which is a little different than in the past. And I think that's probably a good thing, because there was an apathy there for 5 years, maybe, really an apathy in the community. And I think we're getting to the point where the game is close, or it's gotten there for some people. And so it's the small things that really throw you off, instead of gameplay's just a wreck. Forget it. I'm not playing this year. It's, I want to play. I really want to keep playing, but I'm disappointing in this aspect of franchise mode, or this bug ruined the experience for me in this one game. And I think there's a passion about the game maybe that's starting to come back, but some of the stuff is just holding that off a little bit longer than we'd like.
And it will continue to be an interesting evolution, not just with Madden, but also how it compares Metacritic with some of the other games, right? I mean, sports games tend to stay, with the occasional disasters, sports games tend to stay in the same general range. And, as you get Madden compared to FIFA and Pro Evolution and NBA 2K, a lot of people already have, put NBA 2K at the top of their list. Will Metacritic reflect that, or will it still be in the mid 80s and things like that? I mean, there's so many different factors that play this fall with the various reviews. But the initial critical analysis is in, and for the, despite the issues that are known and documented, the overall attitude is that this year's Madden is definitely a winner, and that Metacritic score reflects that. So, Mr. Witta, it will continue to be interesting to see how this plays out for the rest of the big fall sports game season.